Hey everyone, welcome back to AniMonolith's recap series of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Picking up where we left off with Zejun's terrifying debut, the Labyrinth campaign has officially ended. Casualties? 0 on Rimuru's side. A perfect shutout. Currently, Raphael reports that out of Kalgurio's original 700,000 troops, 535,000 have been wiped out. And it is also reported that Krishna used the Resurrection Bracelet and ran out of the dungeon. It was, in every sense, a massacre carried out by the Elite 10. Now, Rimuru has harvested over 700,000 souls, enough to awaken multiple subordinates into demon lords. But he is in no rush. Wouldn't be good to fall asleep in the middle of a war, Rimuru mutters. At this point, Kalgurio has just 170,000 troops left, and the general consensus is that he no longer dares to send anyone back into the labyrinth. The battle is heading back to the surface. However, 2 full days have passed since the elite strike force was deployed, and still no further moves from the Empire, so the big question is, what will Tempest do next? Despite being at war, Rimuru doesn't want to go full scorched earth. He's hoping for a clean win, by simply waiting out the enemy in the labyrinth. After all, Tempest has enough food stockpiled to last a full year without lifting a finger. If needed, Ramirez could even expand farmland inside the dungeon. And he has another reason. He wants to avoid backlash from the Western nations. Massacring the remaining 170,000 soldiers might trigger global condemnation. At this point, Raphael speaks up, offering to test a solution that could resolve the diplomatic fallout. However, it requires time and preparation, so it can't be done mid-war. On the other hand, Benimaru isn't interested in mercy. The Empire won't just lose, he says. They'll be crushed. A full battle plan is drawn up. Currently, Tempest's total combat force stands at 57,000 troops, made up of 30,000 red numbers under Benimaru, 17,000 elite yellow and orange numbers under Geld, and a surprise addition, 10,000 elite fighters from Shion's volunteer fan club. Yes, 10,000. Even Rimuru was shocked. Where the hell did she find that many people? Apparently, Shion had been secretly training them. Every member was at least B rank or higher. And while that's impressive, they're still up against 170,000 Imperial soldiers. So victory would come down to strategy and powerful commanders who could disrupt the enemy with large-scale destruction magic. Originally, Benimaru would have played that role using his Hellflare spell, but this time, he'll stay behind as Rimuru's personal bodyguard. So who will be the nuclear warhead on the battlefield? My lord, may I suggest myself? Carrera speaks up. Rimuru glances at Benimaru, who's nodding like crazy. Carrera is chosen as the lead attacker of the next operation. The rest of the roles fall into place quickly. Diablo is tasked with tracking down the fugitive Krishna. Shion will support Carrera with guerrilla-style tactics. Geld's yellow-orange army will form the front line. The red numbers will flank and chase down retreating enemies. But who will command the red numbers? This person needs to be sharp, calm under pressure, and able to receive orders through the telepathy network and translate them into clean battlefield tactics. Rimuru initially considers Gobta, but before he can say anything, slam! The door bursts open. Enter Momiji, leader of the Tengu clan. As Benimaru's future wife, I believe it's my responsibility to represent him on the battlefield, she declares. Everyone, including Shion and Geld, agrees she's strong, smart, and worthy of the role. But Benimaru? He's frozen like a statue. He's clearly from the no wife on the battlefield school of thought, and just as he's about to protest, Shuna storms in. It's brother's fault for being indecisive. That's why Momiji-sama is worried. If you're a man, you should just make it clear just who you love. Benimaru's protests die in his throat. Rimuru quietly sympathizes. No one wants to talk about love during wartime, especially not in front of your little sister. Before things can calm down, another bombshell drops. Alvis arrives, bringing 20,000 reinforcements from Eurazania, under orders from Milim herself. With 2 powerful women now deployed, Benimaru has no choice but to let them go. The final formation is set. Geld leads the vanguard. Momiji commands the rearguard, Shion flanks the right. Alvis covers the left. With strategy in place, Rimuru prepares to go hype up the troops, but before he can, Sui brings troubling news. Moss has detected a battle at the Blumund border. Trainee is engaged with an unknown opponent. This alarms Rimuru. Trainee left 10 days ago to investigate potential enemies lurking in the labyrinth and hasn't returned. Without hesitation, Rimuru orders Sui to assist her, leaving Benimaru as the last personal guard. 1 hour later, the armies have gathered on the 100th floor of the labyrinth. Thousands of soldiers, organized, alert, and silent, stand ready. Rimuru steps out. Everyone, our goal is clear. Defeat the remaining Imperial troops in one final battle. No one gets left behind. Everyone comes back alive. That is all. And with that, Rimuru casts the transfer spell, teleporting the forces to the surface. After rallying the troops, Rimuru and Benimaru were heading back to the control room when Masayuki, Jinrai, and Bernie arrived to greet them. Rimuru, ever cautious, recalled Gadra's comment that Masayuki resembled Emperor Rudra. His first thought was that this might be an assassination attempt. However, when Raphael confirmed zero chance Masayuki was Rudra in disguise, Rimuru felt more at ease. The conversation with Masayuki turned to town affairs. Recently appointed morale officer, Masayuki admitted the job was overwhelming, housing influxes of evacuees, securing resources, even dealing with vampire volunteers. His weary expression betrayed the stress he carried. Rimuru reassured him that the war was nearing its end, easing the tension. But then things escalated. Bernie launched high-tier holy magic at him. Raphael immediately warned Rimuru. Bernie had actually intended to kill him. The revelation hit hard. Masayuki's companions, Jiwoo and Bernie, were Imperial Royal Guards in disguise. Just then, Bernie drew a sword and a fierce duel with Benimaru erupted. In the fray, Raphael reported a massacre had erupted at the research lab. One of the 10 saints, Bacchus, and some vampires from Roberius had been brutally slain by Jiwoo herself. After hearing Raphael's report, Rimuru was completely shaken. Every single person killed was special A rank or higher, and Jiwoo had eliminated them shortly after separating from Masayuki. Just how powerful was she? What disturbed Rimuru even more was this. How had Jiwoo hidden her murderous intent from Raphael, the very being that managed the entire labyrinth surveillance system? While still stunned, Rimuru suddenly heard someone call his name. Snapping back to his senses, he saw a black blade flying toward his chest. Thanks to thought acceleration, he managed to roll away just in time to avoid the attack. Or maybe Raphael had acted for him. Rimuru couldn't even tell. Either way, he had narrowly escaped death. The one who shouted the warning had been Chloe, who now stood facing Jiwoo, ready to fight. Piecing things together, Rimuru realized the only explanation: both Bernie and Jiwoo had ultimate skills. That was the only way they could bypass Raphael's detection. Looking toward the battlefield, he saw that both Bernie and Jiwoo had activated their holy armament. They weren't ordinary Imperial guards. They were on a whole other level. Even though Bernie seemed outmatched, he was still able to go toe-to-toe with Benimaru. As for Jiwoo, Rimuru was confident she'd lose eventually against Chloe. At that moment, Bernie gripped his pendant tightly once more. In an instant, it transformed into a magic-powered gun and unleashed a barrage of bullets. Benimaru didn't flinch. He coated his sword, Red Lotus, with black flame and launched a counterattack. The clash was fierce and relentless. Bit by bit, Benimaru began to push Bernie back. Watching the fight unfold, Rimuru couldn't help but be impressed. Benimaru's strength had far surpassed expectations, perhaps even surpassing Hakuro and Albert. His swordsmanship was refined, and his control over the black flame was masterful. Rimuru had previously warned him that the enemy likely possessed an ultimate skill, but seeing Benimaru in action, Rimuru was confident he could win. And then Benimaru delivered what should have been a finishing blow, a precise, devastating slash engulfed in black flames. Rimuru thought it was over, but to his surprise, Bernie smirked. He was completely unharmed. It turned out Bernie had activated his ultimate skill at the last second. The black flame had been neutralized and his armor had blocked the strike. Even the small wound he did receive was instantly healed with restoration magic. In that moment, the tide of battle shifted. Bernie launched a brutal counteroffensive, hammering Benimaru with overwhelming force. Now all Benimaru could do was defend. It is the superiority of ultimate skill on the battlefield. While Benimaru was struggling, Chloe wasn't having an easy time either. In terms of pure strength, Chloe should have had the upper hand, but Jiwoo was clever and had no intention of engaging her directly. To stall for time and prevent reinforcements, Jiwoo used a paralytic fog that clouded vision and disoriented movement. It didn't affect Chloe thanks to her mask, but the tactic was undeniably annoying. Jiwoo's goal wasn't to win, just to buy enough time for Bernie to defeat Benimaru. Once that happened, the two of them would gang up on Chloe and finish her off. The battlefield was close to Labyrinth City, so Rimuru had his hands full, intercepting Bernie's stray attacks and couldn't back up Benimaru or Chloe. Communication with Ramirez was also down, so calling in reinforcements was out of the question. Tired of the cat-and-mouse game, Chloe decided to go all in and activate her ultimate skill, Spacetime King Yog Sothoth. "It's come to this. Guess I'll go all out," she declared. Rimuru immediately recalled the time-stopping effect from the meeting with Guy. If Chloe could pull it off, Jiwoo would be done for, and yet he couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The moment Chloe activated the skill, time froze, but Raphael instantly reported that Chloe's energy was plummeting. She couldn't maintain control. When Rimuru looked over, Chloe had reverted to her usual childlike form, a clear sign she wasn't ready to fully wield the power of Spacetime King. Worse still, the ability had drained her heavily. "Chloe, are you okay?" Rimuru asked. "Kind of falling apart here. I can shift back to my adult form, but it's gonna take a while," she replied. The situation had gone sideways, but it wasn't hopeless. Chloe could still fight in her current form. Just then, Raphael reported successful analysis of Jiwoo and Bernie's abilities. Their ultimate skills were borrowed. These skills granted them concealment and superiority in magic, but both Jiwoo and Bernie were now too drained to use them again. That gave Rimuru an idea. If someone could lend out ultimate skills, so could he. In fact, he could do it better. He established soul corridor links with both Chloe and Benimaru, preparing to share his power. First, he enhanced Benimaru's Red Lotus Blade by infusing it with an absolute severance effect, similar to Chloe's own technique. It was the reverse of his absolute defense, turning it into a deadly offense. Rimuru believed it would be enough to pierce Bernie's borrowed defense. Meanwhile, Chloe returned to her adult form. She could have continued fighting normally, but Rimuru had something else in mind. He wanted her to try activating Spacetime King again, with proper support this time. Raphael would handle the energy calculations. Chloe agreed. This time, she succeeded. Time froze again, and Jiwoo was instantly reduced to ash. At the same moment, Benimaru, empowered by Rimuru's magic, sliced Bernie clean in half. Double victory. Game over. Just when Rimuru thought it was all over, Raphael dropped a bombshell. Bernie and Jiwoo were still alive. They'd used resurrection bracelets. This caught Rimuru off guard. Raphael never makes mistakes. It's practically a rule of nature. So for it to overlook something as critical as a resurrection bracelet was shocking. But then again, Rimuru himself hadn't noticed, and both Benimaru and Chloe confirmed they hadn't seen the bracelets either. That meant only one thing. Bernie and Jiwoo had hidden them so well that not even Raphael caught it. While Rimuru was still trying to make sense of it, Masayuki and Jinrai stepped in with a revelation. They had worn their resurrection bracelets as anklets, disguising them as something else. And just like that, it clicked. Bernie and Jiwoo had done the same thing. Realizing how prepared the enemy had been, and with communications to Ramirez still blocked, Rimuru and Benimaru could only look at each other and sigh. There was no other way. It couldn't be helped. And so the mock assassination incident ended with Rimuru alive, but Masayuki emotionally wrecked, reeling from the betrayal of his allies. Rimuru left Chloe to stay with him and help him recover while he and Benimaru returned to the control room to resume the war effort against Kalgurio. Just as they arrived, Ramirez and Veldora burst in, visibly panicked. "Rimuru, I nearly died of worry when I lost contact with you." But Veldora's concern quickly turned to sulking rage when he found out some of his power had been siphoned to fuel Chloe's ultimate skill. Apparently, Raphael had borrowed it without asking, reasoning that there was no time to request permission. Rimuru didn't even know what to say, so he promised to make it up to his dragon friend with a delicious snack and a brand new manga volume. Once he calmed Ramirez and Veldora down and reassured them that he was fine, a new surprise arrived. Trainee and Sue returned, and they brought back a badly beaten man, Laplace. "Why is he still alive?" Benimaru asked coldly. "I tried to kill him, but he insisted on talking to you," Sue replied. Benimaru immediately drew his sword. Seeing things spiral, Laplace dramatically sprang to life, begging not to be killed. His theatrics made Rimuru burst out laughing, even as Benimaru pressed closer with a murderous aura. "Okay, that's enough. Let's hear what he has to say," Rimuru interjected, stopping Benimaru just in time. With a shaky breath, Laplace finally got to the point. "I came to warn you, watch out for Bernie and Jiwoo." Rimuru and Benimaru looked at each other, completely deadpan. "You're just now telling us that? It's already over." Laplace continued anyway, explaining that Damrata, one of Yuki's men, and a key figure in the secret organization Cerberus, had likely orchestrated the attack. It was not Yuki's plan, and when Laplace got wind of it, he rushed to deliver the warning. But things didn't go smoothly. Trainee had been on high alert, suspicious of Laplace the whole time. Despite his pleas, she never gave him a chance to speak. Apparently, they'd been fighting like cats and dogs for the past 10 days. I said it was urgent. I yelled it 1,000 times. Yeah, well, you've tricked us before. This time, I wasn't lying. Their bickering turned so ridiculous, Rimuru had to ask, so you two have just been arguing the entire time? Trainee, red with embarrassment, apologized. But Rimuru couldn't bring himself to be angry. Laplace was shady, sure, but not entirely untrustworthy. And let's be honest, even now he was still suspicious as hell. No one blamed Trainee, not even Benimaru or Sue. The situation was frustrating, but there was no use staying mad. There were bigger things to deal with. All right, Rimuru said. What's done is done. Let's move on. With that, they returned to the task at hand. The war wasn't over yet. The final battle against Calgurio was still to come. That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching AniMonolith's recap of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. See you in the next one.